Howdy folks, today we have a lot of exciting news. Rivian CEO has outlined what they're calling his master plan for the company. So today we're going to go over a few key points he makes in this video. Rivian is making a higher priced vehicle to fuel the production of lower priced vehicles. This is the same thing that Tesla did, because this way experience is gained when production is limited and manufacturing can be tweaked. So they're basically starting with a flagship vehicle. They're getting people addicted to their amazing brand, to all the amazing features. And then they slowly introduce a cheaper model that goes into mass scale production. Now, Tesla did the same thing. First, they came out with the Model S and the Model X, and now they're in mass volume production with Model 3 and Model Y. What's mentioned in this video is vertical integration. So basically, Rivian is saying that every computer is built in-house, software on top of that is also built in-house, and all this allows them for custom integration that is much better than just outsourced electronic components. This is what most other vehicle manufacturers do. They just sort of built out the body of the car, the engine, and then they just outsource pretty much everything else. So car is it feels out of sync. It doesn't feel like it's put together as a whole. It just feels like a sum of just basic parts that are outsourced. Second most important thing RJ mentioned in this video is that most customers that bought R1 have never owned a truck before. That's around 80% of the customers that are buying R1 platform trucks have never owned a truck before. Storage and utility now meets efficiency with less polluting. This is a big deal, guys, because most of wealthy folks buy expensive vehicles that are often huge gas guzzlers, like Cadillac Escalades or the Hummer. However, since they are now buying these large electric trucks that are on par with these other huge gas guzzlers, they're reducing demand for dirty oil and lowering overall pollution. Third thing that RJ really hits on is EV charging is still a challenge due to lack of investment, and that's why Rivian is building out their Rivian Adventure Network. So far, they have 30 sites with 6 DC fast chargers that have capabilities of up to 300 kilowatt hours. This is huge. These are extremely fast chargers, and they have a lot more stations as well. These are just their fastest DC charging stations. Outside of Tesla, there's really no competitors that have reliable chargers that are constantly up and running and delivering advertised charge deliveries. So there's a huge lack of charging infrastructure, which is one of the key components of why people are still not mass adopting electric vehicles. RJ also mentions that within 2 years, Rivian will build out 600 charging stations. He mentions that getting permits is actually more difficult than building sites itself. Hundreds of stations are waiting to be permitted. As soon as they are, they will be put up. So a lot of sites are still, even though they're earmarked to be built out, they're still just waiting for these permits, which are extremely difficult to obtain. DC fast chargers for Rivian will come in groups of 3. So you will have 3, 6, 12 stations per site, and with 2 power stations supplying the chargers to make sure there's no total failure at the station. Ideal uptime is 99.5%, as RJ mentions, because you have to have a reliable charging station. Otherwise, your road trip can be completely ruined. Your day can be completely ruined. Your experience with EVs can just sour up if you don't have these chargers that are up 99.5% of the time. Now, RJ doesn't really mention much about Amazon-Rivian partnership. He does say, however, that electric delivery vans are much easier to build. It has much less parts, and many parts are shared with R1T and R1S. However, they are deployed in clusters, so the most likely issue with just getting out even more EDVs, because they are cheaper to build, like we just said, the biggest issue is that Amazon charging infrastructure is not there yet. They cannot keep up with the deployment of charging stations with all the EDVs that have to be on the roads. Like we just mentioned, it's very difficult to obtain permits even for Amazon. So it's very likely that Amazon has not deployed thousands of more EDVs just because they cannot get these stations up, just because they cannot get the permits up. Lastly, we have a question. When are 35K EVs coming? So when are cheaper models of electric vehicles coming? Now, RJ already mentioned this, but he reiterates that challenge is not to produce something that is basically stripped of its personality, a bare minimum vehicle. So they don't want to just put out anything. They don't want to just put out a battery on wheels that has no soul. But it has to be fun. It has to be exciting, even though it's affordable. It has to be something that's adventurous, that makes you excited to drive it. Even though, like we said, it's very affordable. It's not as expensive as R1S or R1T. Our R2 production line will have a lot of trade-offs, but how they will be removing the flashlight in the doors most likely, and the world is moving towards full electrification of all automobiles. So but they have to be the best bargain for the price. Like, you cannot put out a $25,000 vehicles that is worse than a Toyota Corolla. Like, these vehicles have to be on par. They have to have the same performance, the same abilities that gas cars have at the moment for the same price range. Now, this is very easy to achieve at a high-end range when the trucks are $100,000. However, if you want a $25,000 vehicle and you want people to love it, it has to be on par with a Hyundai, with a Honda, with a Toyota, with all their cheaper models. RJ really reiterates that charging infrastructure is the key problem to mass adoption of EVs. He hopes that the whole world will go full electric within 15 years, and hopefully R2 and R3 will lead this charge. They will not have, like we mentioned, some of the parts the R1S and R1T have. They will not, for example, have the quad motors. They will have a dual motor, but they will have nearly same capabilities that are on par with the most expensive EVs and non-EVs, which is the key here. So that's it, guys. That's a brief overview of what RJ discussed recently in the podcast. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do let me know below. We can discuss them. Guys, as always, subscribe, like, and share, and have a great day.